Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. We have a very spicy donation deck today from somebody who often gives us spicy donation decks that you've probably seen on the channel, and this one is certainly up there. What I do like about this is we get to see a lot of new cards I haven't played with yet, which is exactly where we want to be with the channel sometimes. So this is kind of a night themed deck in some ways. So we have a bunch of Nazguls. If you're not familiar with this card, it's a 3-mana 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, put a +1/+1 counter on each wraith you control. And you can have 9 of this card in the deck for the 9 ring wraiths. So these are going to hopefully scale up, and we have Call of the Ring to try and scale them up a little bit more too. So we have these knights here, and we can saw one in half to get 2, which is going to be kind of interesting as well. And we can also saw in half some of our other things like Grief or Orcish Bowmasters to get some scarier stuff going on that way. Then the sort of the knight tribal element that we have is Haakon, Stromgald, Scourge. I used to love this card back in the day in Standard. I used to play it with Nameless Inversion. It's just like a way of repeatable removal. But whilst this card is in your graveyard, you can play it from the graveyard, but you can't play it from anywhere else. And then when it dies, you lose some life. But while it's in play, you get to play knight cards from your graveyard. So you can just keep playing your Nazguls when they die. And you can also play some of the other things we're going to get to in a second. So we have this card, which is a new card that I think is genuinely pretty good. It's a 2-mana 2/2. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. So it's not whenever this card attacks, it's whenever you attack. You may discard a card. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. So if you have a 1-drop or whatever, or you have something in play before this comes out, you can then pump the thing that's attacking straight away. And then whenever you discard one or more cards, exile a top card of your library, you may play that card into a next end step. So you're filtering a card effectively. So it's like rummaging and growing your creature and giving it trample, which is pretty cool. And it's a knight. I have another deck list in my queue with this card in. So I expect to be seeing more of this. I think this card is pretty interesting. So this can discard things like our Haakon, as well as things we might want to put in the graveyard to reanimate via our Animate Dead. The reason we're running Animate Dead is because we're also running Chalice, but we'll get to that in a second. We also have this card, Warg Rider. 5-mana 4/3, Menace. Other orcs and goblins you control have Menace, so our orc army tokens are going to be having Menace. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you amass orcs too. So this basically comes in as 6 power for 5 mana, and then it grows every turn and does some cool stuff. So not one I've seen before. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think it's probably a little on the expensive side, but we're playing some fun stuff here. And then speaking of expensive, we have this Witch King Sky Scourge. This is a 7-mana 5/5. With whenever you attack with one or more wraiths, exile top X cards of your library where X is their total power. You may play those cards this turn. So you still have to pay the mana cost for them, but you get to play them. And it has Undying, so when it dies, it comes back slightly bigger. Oh, and it's got Flying too. So this one is not a knight itself though, so we don't get to replay it with Haakon, but this is a thing that we can discard with our little guy and then bring back with Animate Dead and do some cool things that way. And in terms of wraiths, it's going to be all the Nazguls. And that's not it for the spice, we've still got more. So we also have Dino DNA as an Urza Saga target. So this is a 1-mana artifact with pay 1 and tap it, exile target creature card from a graveyard, activate only as a sorcery. And then you can pay 6 to create a token of the thing that you've exiled, except as a 6/6 green dinosaur with trample. And you can only activate this as a sorcery. So there's a lot of text there, but basically we get to strip things out of graveyards and then turn them into things if we have a bunch of excess mana. So this is kind of a nice sort of mid to late game thing if we've got a bunch of mana hanging around. And we've got another new card here, Molten Collapse. Black, red, choose one. If you've descended, choose both. So descending is having a permanent card put into your graveyard from anywhere. So we can definitely do that with things like fetch lands or just discarding stuff with our little guy that discards things. So we either destroy target creature or planeswalker, or we destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. And we might be able to get to do both. So, you know, things like Shadow Spear we can hit, or any amount of the sort of artifact things that you're seeing in play quite often in Legacy these days. We have 1 Collective Brutality as another way of discarding cards to facilitate our plan, and we've got a bunch of fast mana and Chrome Mox and Lotus Petals here. And this is all tucked in to a sort of slightly slimmed down version of like the classic scam. So we've got our Griefs and our Trolls here. We've only got 2 Trolls here. And because we're running the Chalice, we're running Animate Dead as our reanimation spell. So yeah, that's a lot of different stuff. And what's more, we also are having these 4 Urza Saga to go with these 4 Ancient Tombs, which might be a little bit greedy, but our colour costs aren't super intensive, so I reckon we can probably get away with it. But we'll see. That's definitely something I'm looking out for here, because we've got 4 Badlands, 1 Swamp, 1 Urborg. So it's not necessarily the most amount of coloured sources, so it might be leaning on the Chrome Mox a little bit here. We're also a 61 card deck because, you know, if we've got to play all these cards, we've got to fit them in somehow, and this is the list I was given, and that's what we're doing. Sideboard-wise, the spice continues to flow. So we've got some removal in Sheoldred's Edict. We have a Vengeful Pharaoh, which is an interesting one, where we can keep discarding it, and then effectively if anything hits us, it will get killed, and then it comes back into our hand, and we can then discard it with Inti again, and just keep spinning that wheel round and round. We have Spitting Dilophosaurus. So this is a 3-mana 3/2. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. Creatures your opponent control with -1/-1 counters on them can't block. So we can kill off some of their little guys, and we can also make the big guys unable to block. So pretty interesting one, this. I think this has some interesting applications sometimes. An Oppo agent, that's a tried and tested thing. We have another Dino DNA. I'm not necessarily sure we need a second one, but here it is. And we have the Black Breath. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, and the Ring Tempts You. So this is relatively expensive for this effect, but the Ring Tempts You is obviously very good with our Nazguls. Bit of Graveyard Hate in the Faerie Macabre. Another Molten Collapse when we need to blow some little stuff up. Phyrexian Revoker to shut down some problem permanents that have got activated abilities we don't want to deal with. And then we have a Rampaging War Mammoth. So this is a 7-mana 9/7 trample. So if we cycle this and then reanimate with Animate Dead, that's pretty cool. But when we cycle it, it's 3 mana plus X, and when we cycle it, we destroy up to X target artifacts. That's uncounterable artifact destruction. It is quite an expensive effect, but we're leaning into the fact that we can reanimate it. And one more card, which is an interesting one that I think is something that maybe should be seeing a little play here and there in some decks that aren't playing things like Bonecrusher Giants. So this is X and a red. Damage can't be prevented this turn. This card deals X damage to target creature and 1 damage to each other creature with the same controller. So you can use this as just a way of sweeping a bunch of your opponent's things, or you can just pay red mana and say damage can't be prevented this turn. Now, a reason why you would want damage to not be prevented this turn is because the 1 ring can really jam up your combat maths. This for 1 mana can say, okay, we get to ignore the rings enter the battlefield ability, and we get to crunch for damage. Also, this is very good at taking out a True Name Nemesis. If your opponent's got multiple creatures, you can fire this at one of the other ones for 1 damage, and it will go across and kill their True Name. So I actually think this card is really interesting, and I'm surprised I haven't actually seen anyone playing it yet. I wasn't even aware of this card until today, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it seems quite interesting to me. And that's a deck. Much spice is overflowing from this one, and I'm excited to get into it. I haven't actually got to play with the Nazguls yet. And I know some people have been playing some videos with them, so I'm hopefully going to really leverage these into doing some cool stuff. Alright, that's the deck. If you would like a donation deck, it can be as spicy as this one, if you like. By all means, get in touch. We can do that. Alternatively, you can become a member of my Patreon. The lowest tier gives you a entry into a raffle every month to get a free donation deck. Or you can go into the highest tier, which gives you just a donation deck every month as part of it. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's get into the spicy nighttime. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, our opening hand, we can play a turn 1 Nazgul. A turn 1 Chalice, but that stops us from playing the Nazgul. We could also Grief. So how good do we think this Chalice is going to be? If we find a second mana source, we do get to start doing Urza Saga things. I'm not really in love with this hand. I think we can do a little bit better. Alright, I'm down for this one. Let's just smash some Nazguls right in their chops. This is what you all came to see today. How many Nazguls can I play? Alright, is our opponent on some Delver here? They are. Okay, this Ancient Tomb is not going to be free for us, that's for sure. Alright, so we have our Bloodstained Mire. We can crack this for a swamp and then cycle our Troll of Khazad-dum for a Badlands. Right, they're brainstorming response, they really want this to flip. So we're representing what could be a reanimated deck right now. So our opponent is probably thinking, okay, we need to get the pressure going in case that's what our opponent's doing. Alright, so we take 3 here. crack this. I do really want to play this Nazgul, but maybe the correct play here is to play the troll, to play the Animate Dead on the troll around a daze. Maybe that is the smarter approach to this game. It's not what the people want to see though, but I do think that is the better bet here. And then next turn we can start playing Nazguls around daze. But the Nazguls into a face-up lightning bolt also feel pretty bad. Alright. We've got ourselves a big boy. We have taken a bit of damage here. We got a 4-turn clock. Our opponent has a 4-turn clock as well because of the lightning bolts. So something's going to have to give here. Lightning bolt to the face. Very aggressive. A wasteland. That's pretty good. We lose our ancient tomb here. Yep, so this is going to put us to 8. So another lightning bolt and they can kill us in 2 turns. This is going to be a Murktide. Yep, our opponent's hand is just too efficient for us to beat it. We made a turn 2 5/5 unblockable, but it's not going to be good enough, and they have lethal damage right now. Urza Saga doesn't get us anywhere. Nope, that's just lethal. We can scoop that one up. Alright. Delver, you say. Creature removal, I would like you. Let's also get some Sheoldred's Edicts in there. I think the Witch King is quite an expensive thing to be trying to do here. Same with the Warg Rider. I think we kind of need to lower our curve. Do we get rid of both of these Witch Kings? How useful do I think Haakon here is? I think the Saw in Half is interesting still. This does fly and do some other stuff, but I think we just need to have this sort of jam going on. The Dilophosaurus is slightly interesting, but they're not really blocking, and it maybe gets to pick something off. It's like a worse Bowmasters in a lot of ways. So I think the wave boarded here is probably where I want to be. We could bring in Fearfire Foes as a way of stripping out some little guys that have multiple little guys, but I think the other removal bringing in is just better anyway. Alright. What does this hand do? Nothing really. We don't have the mana to support this. We're going to mulligan this one. What does this one do? We can make a turn 1 Inti. Or we can do a turn 1 Grief. Reanimate Grief. But we have to lose another card for this. Tough choice. Let me chuck back the Badlands to begin with. So now we have a choice. Are we putting the Inti underneath the Chrome Mox and just doing Grief, pitching Haakon, and then reanimating? That doesn't seem like it's going to be good enough to get us there against a Delver player. So I think what we're doing here is cracking this for a swamp. Oh no, that's wrong actually, isn't it? We needed a red source if we want to play the Inti this turn. Alright. I think we will not play the Inti out now and go for the Grief line. So we will evoke this, pitching this. This is our whole hand to Thoughtseize our opponent twice and get 2/2 into play. Like we do have 2 mana sources to show for it as well. See what you're working with, opponent. A Surgical Extraction. Okay, I guess we have to take the Surgical Extraction right now. But if we do that, yeah, this is really annoying, isn't it? Our opponent's hand very easily deals with what we're up to. Alright. So they can force this. Force pitching Delver. Alright, so now we are... Our opponent doesn't have any plays they can make turn 1 unless they draw the correct mana source. Right, there's the Bauble. And there's a C. So we're unlikely to see a play from our opponent right now unless they drew into like a cantrip or something. I think our play did end up being better than just trying to put the Inti into play. Dino DNA. Alright. Alright, so we got Mishra's Bauble coming in on the other side. Taking another look. This can only exile creature cards. And we can only exile them as a sorcery. I don't think we're supposed to exile the Grief in case we draw another Animate Dead. We're nowhere near 6 mana. This is probably going to be a mana source. Alright, I think we swamp cycle this. Are we getting a wastable source? I don't think so. I think we just get... oh wait, we don't have a choice actually, do we? We are getting this. Are we playing this out now or not? If we play it out, expose us to wasteland, but it also means that, what does it mean? If we just keep run a land, then it means we get to Dino DNA. I think we just pass and hold the Badlands, preventing ourselves from getting wastelanded. We need to find some business before our opponent gets to find a red source. Right, so they found themselves a red source, and they also get to brainstorm away some cards they don't like. Alright, there is a Dragon's Race Channeler. And Urborg. Guess we play this out now. I still don't think we're supposed to activate our Dino DNA just yet. I think next turn we probably do, and put a Grief under it. And then if we find like soul lands, we get to make a big dinosaur. Like, we are very much behind here. We used our entire hand to strip 3 cards from our opponent, and we are fortunate they took a while to draw their red source to do anything, but alright, no creatures in their graveyard, so we can't Dino DNA anything away. Not that we can do it at instant speed anyway. A Delver of Secrets. Alright, this is probably going to flip because they've just pondered and they didn't shuffle. Alright, we will play out our Polluted Delta here. So we will exile our Grief. This way, if we draw an Ancient Tomb next turn, we can put a big Grief into play. Alright, what would you like to reveal to my opponent? Alright, they didn't have the option of flipping it, I imagine. That's what that means. Yep, 4 damages right in our heart. Animate Dead, you say. Let's see if we can get a big troll going. We're not going to crack this fetch. We can tap for black and save life. Right, Force of Will, pitching a daze, sure. Right, so we play this out. Any land next turn gives us Dinosaur Grief. Now, is that going to be fast enough? Uncertain. Bowmasters, pretty strong here. Our opponent's deck's just firing on all cylinders, and we are not particularly doing that. Right, there's a daze. Alright, this is lethal, right? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yep, we just got absolutely delved in the heart there. We didn't really give much of a fight there, unfortunately. But this was, both games were pretty decent draws from our Delver player, and a lot of decks are going to struggle, let alone the slightly more spicy deck that we happen to be on. Initial impressions of playing Dino DNA for the first time is that it's very expensive, and sorcery speed is definitely a limitation on it. But we'll see. This is only one round, and our opponent's draw was going to beat like a lot of tier 1 decks we would play. So let's go to round 2. So what does this opening hand do? We can Grief and then make a turn 2 Nazgul. But just a Nazgul on its own doesn't really seem great. I think we can do better. Alright. This is interesting. We don't do anything on turn 1 unless we want to pitch something. I think I want to... Let me get rid of the Witch King here. We have a choice as to whether we play the Saga out on turn 1 or not, because this can then go and get us a Mox when the time comes. An Orcish Bowmasters. I think we just play out the Badlands first. The question we have now is, do we play Chalice of the Void on 0? That's good against a lot of Urza's Saga decks. I think we do. And then next turn we play the Inti. Now there's a possibility this doesn't do anything. Our opponent could be on some sort of like land strategy. But if they're on like any of the Storm variants, or if they're on 8 cast or whatever, then this Chalice of the Void will actually do a lot of work. It'll be the difference between us winning and losing. I guess the other option there was to Grief first and see if our opponent does anything that makes us want to. So we get an information about our opponent's decks. We see that we want to put the Chalice on. That's quite a lot of investment, because if they're a land strategy... Okay, so we're looking at Painter here. I see. So this will get Grindstone next turn. Okay, so we are dead next turn. And I don't believe we have any way out of this unless we draw our removal spells. Okay. Oh, a rough one. Turn 3 Goldfish. A Nazgul. That's not going to do anything. Bowmasters isn't going to do anything. If we grief them, it's not going to stop them from killing us. They have the win on board. I don't believe we have any way around this. No, I think we are done here. Because they already have the 3 mana, so... Yikes, that's a tough one. I think we want the thing that blows up artifacts, but I think this is going to be possibly a little bit too slow. We have the Phyrexian Revoker and Molten Collapse. I don't hate the Sheoldred's Edict here. I think they're pretty fine. Opposition Agent has some pretty useful text. The Faerie Macabres are also pretty interesting to me here as well. Don't really like Dino DNA, so that can go. Core of the Ring is fine. Bowmasters picks off some stuff, like little guys. I think we're probably just streamlining our deck here. I don't think we want chalices either. And then where are we looking at? There's a lot of cards we're trying to bring in here. We can find 2 more cuts if we want them. We're not taking out any Nazguls, because that's the cool thing that I really want to do. So like Lotus Petals and stuff are really bad with Chalice against like Goblin Welders and stuff. Like we can put this on 1 and shut down Welders and things. That's an option. But I don't think it's where I want to be. I don't mind some of this graveyard stuff. Core of the Ring. It's a nice way to grind. Maybe Saw in Half is a little expensive. And then something else has to go here. Maybe we don't want all of these Faerie Macabres. It's nice to have like 1 in hand, but I don't think we need all of them maybe. Let's try this. What does this hand do? We put this into Chrome Mox and we can start Urza Sagaing on 2. It doesn't actually interact with our opponent's plan and their Goldfish will beat us. So I think we need to mulligan. Bowmasters is okay. I think we keep this and throw back an Ancient Tomb. Alright, not a massive lover of what I'm seeing in this hand, but I think this is acceptable. We at least have an answer to some of their things. Like, we're not going to be able to beat their good hand. I don't think we have enough removal spells to mulligan to them, because you've got like 4 removal spells. So I think the plan here is to offer something like a Bowmasters to kill like a Goblin Welder, or shut down the loot effect from the Fable. Alright, so there's the Welder, so we're rewarded for the play we took. Another opener. I'm not going to cycle this yet. Alright, ping this. Okay, so far so good. There's Bloodstained Mire, so we're probably going to be playing this and cycling the Troll next turn. Painted 7. Okay. Gonna name blue, so their Pyroblast are turned on. Oh, I've chosen white. Interesting. I'm running something like Solitude. Animate Dead. That's interesting. We have some options here. We can play the Revoker and name Grindstone. I think we don't need to do that this turn. I think we can just jam a Nazgul and start getting some actual pressure. They might have March of Otherworldly Light, actually. Okay, so the ring will tempt us. So we choose a creature to be our ring bearer. I think we just choose this Orc army. So the ring bearer says it's now legendary and can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So not relevant right now. But we will cycle this. If we'd have cycled this earlier, we could have done a slightly different turn this time, where we play out the Revoker and Animate Dead our Troll. That might have been a bit more solid. Like, we lose to Lion's Eye Diamond here. Okay, Goblin World. A lot of these builds not really running Lion's Eye Diamond though, so 1 card left in our opponent's hand. Let's go Badlands. Alright, if we go to attacks. Attack with these 2. If they kill our Orcish Bowmasters, we reanimate it and ping their Welder. They shouldn't block here. It's a pretty telegraphed attack that we have. So we can play this out. Let's cast this, naming Grindstone. And then I think we just get back the biggest threat that we can get here. Give ourselves a nice 5/5. And we've got some decent damage going. And we have 2 cards in hand. They've named white with this, so they can't just Pyroblast away our Revoker and kill us with the Grindstone. We don't have anything to Welder in or out just yet. Right, another useless land. Understood. Send these 2 in. This is 7. Put a land. We got some movement from our opponent here. This could just be an end of turn match where we light and then we die on that turn. Okay, a plow. Same difference. So now they can untap, grindstone us, and it's game over. We don't have any shuffle-in mechanics, so out goes our library. Our opponent can have a look, and then we will lose the game. All right. Yeah, we kind of got smashed by Painter. We don't really have enough interaction in our deck is the problem. By playing all these like Nazguls and stuff, we are a little bit low. And if our Bowmasters isn't the necessary interaction we need, then we are a little bit stunted on that front. And our opponent did just like turn 3 goldfish us as well. All right, we're going to round 3 already. Let's see if we can put some wins on the board. What does this hand do for us? We go turn 1, Chrome Mox, imprint, saw in half, cycle troll. Then the next turn we start playing Nazguls. Like, we do want to play Nazguls. They are cool. Is this hand good, though? Questionable would be the best I describe it. I think I'm going to keep it. Like, we don't... Like, what are we mulliganing to? We don't have removal to, like, rely on, really. We just have some threats. Alright, at least we're relatively wasteland-proof, though. Right, Ponder. Is this a Sneak and Show deck, or is this a Delver-style deck? That's the two things I'm expecting. Could be some sort of Jeskai control as well, to be fair. I chose not to shuffle their library, so not the best for us there. And Urza's Saga, you say? Right, we'll play this one out. And then I guess we could play a turn 1 Nazgul. Like, that's what the people came here to see, isn't it? Right, Chrome Mox. Imprint Troll of Khazad-dum. Chrome Mox, imprint Grief. So we're going to Nazgul and then we're going to saw in half our Nazgul. Is this the most optimal thing we could probably do with the selection of cards we had available? Probably not. But is it the thing that you all came here to see? Very much so. Let's play my 3 mana card that dies to Lightning Bolt. Alright, let's get Tempting. Alright. So next turn we can deploy a different Nazgul and grow both of our guys. And also get the ring tempting us in a good way. Or we can saw in half if we're worried about that. Ancient Tomb. Okay, so this is show and tell. I see. Yep, this is going to be more powerful than things we're doing. Alright, here comes the Nazgul. There's an Omniscience. They're just going to cast an Emrakul. Drawing 3 cards. That's usually a pretty good thing to be doing. They're drawing another 3 cards. Yikes. Ponder. They still not found a big monster though. They shuffled their library. Pondering again. Oh dear, oh dear. And they're brainstorming. And Atraxa. That's pretty good. What have you got? A brainstorm to try and find them an Emrakul. The only card that matters from that pile at this point in time, I think. Yeah. They're going to cast a brainstorm. Oh, they got Preordain as well. Oh, they just had that in hand from the brainstorm. I see. Okay, 1 top. Another Atraxa. Chalice Emrakul. No Emrakul. Alright. Keep on rummaging. Yeah, you might as well play all your cards. We're going to dismiss all these rather than trying to work out which ones they are. Our opponent's got lots of stuff. This game basically comes down to if they find the Emrakul or not. If they don't find it this turn, they still have another turn. Brainstorm. Our opponent has seen a lot of cards this turn. Alright, and there's the Emrakul and we're dead. Okay. Yikes. So, Phyrexian Revoker naming Sneak Attack. That sounds like a good thing I would like to do. Edicts, these feel like good things to do as well. Rest of my cards, not so much. Dino DNA seems like a very slow and laborious process to get that to do anything in this matchup. The Witch King is fine-ish. If they like choose to put some stuff in for us, we can do things with it. Blowing up their creature isn't really going to help, because if they get the creature, then the game's probably already over. So, killing them at instant speed, definitely. Killing them at sorcery speed, no. That's the logic I'm going with that one. Warg Rider, kind of a bit slow. We just want to sort of do scammy type stuff. So we're going to keep our saw in half in because that allows us to clone our Grief and just take more cards out of our opponent's hand. Warg Rider's maybe a bit slow here, and we'll take out one of the Witch Kings. Alright, I think this is where we're at here. We are up against it a little bit. Can I just keep a hand that just makes Bowmasters? No, not really. We need something a bit more. Alright, now this is a hand that does some stuff. Alright. So we can Grief on turn 1. And then turn to Animate Dead on the Grief. Whilst playing out an Urza Saga. And then try and beat them down with Saga Construct tokens. That seems acceptable to me. What are we getting rid of in that case? It's probably the second Nazgul. Because one goes into the Grief. Yeah, sure. So we definitely want to Grief on turn 1. Because this will get through Brainstorm. Right. Let's vote this pitch in the Nazgul. So you're working with their opponent. A Show and Tell. That can go right away. And then I think we're supposed to play this Bloodstained Mire. Then we can Animate Dead on the Grief next turn. After we see what their Ponder does. So they have a shuffle, because otherwise they can hide the card they want on top. But the way our curve works means we're almost certainly just playing this Grief out. Not to shuffle their library. Okay. Play this out. How much do I think we're going to need red mana? I'd like to be able to play on the Blood Moon. It's unlikely our opponent has Blood Moon, but it's certainly a possibility. Alright. So another option that might have occurred to you was to take the Atraxa and then we try and reanimate the Atraxa. But if our opponent... Okay, so we can take the Atraxa now. And then that's there for us later if we want it. But I think we want to stop their combo as best we can there. Alright, there's an Ancient Tomb. We can also exile this and do some Dino DNA stuff. Oh no, we took the Dino DNA out, didn't we? I think, because it was very slow. Let's play this. We can start smashing with our Saga, but our opponent will have this Brotherhood's End at some point. But they don't have red-red just yet. Right, so now they have red-red. And we are still making this. Keep making guys, force them. Okay, so we get... Doesn't really matter which one we get here. We're still losing all of our guys in a second. Let's play this one out. I'm going to Spell Pierce this. I think that was a bit clumsy of us, really. I don't think we need to play that out right there and then. We've just given our opponent a very good line this turn as well. While they Brotherhood's End. Sweep up all creatures. Well, we do get to carry on beating with our Urza Saga. You know, we're supposed to play the Ring into the face up. Spell Pierce there. It's just very sloppy of me, I'm sorry. Alright, there's an Otawara being played rather than activated. So they're doing this so they don't take life to Brotherhood's End here. I believe that's the reason they're doing this. They're going to choose to hit creatures and take all of these out. Yep. But we still have an Urza Saga ticking. Interesting. So we can play our Grief out here. And also get our Saga cooking. This is pretty good. It's not Nazguls, but... I guess we take the Lorien Revealed. Because they could just draw 3 cards next turn, like proper 3 cards, instead of looking at 3. We don't have a lot of life to work with, but this isn't really a matchup that cares about our life total, so... Let's just keep going in on the Sagas. Shadow Spear wouldn't be the worst, but it's not a thing we get to do, really. We'll take a Chrome Mox. Do we want a second black more than we want a Nazgul in play? So this is... So we attack our opponent for 6. So we have lethal here anyway. Do we want a second black? I think we do want a second black source more than we want the Nazgul in play here. That gives us a Grief or something if that's where we need to be. But our opponent has to assemble it right now or they lose the game. A Brainstorm. Alright, we got there. Do we want to do anything differently? I think Haakon is probably quite a slow... We could play something like Oppo Agent. We could play this Dino DNA. Yeah, go on then. Let's put the Dino DNA back in instead of this Haakon. We can never take an Emrakul. We can take the Atraxa. And a Grizzlebrand if they have one. probably just like 4 Atraxa, 4 Emrakul. Our hand does not disrupt our opponent in any way, shape or form, so we cannot keep this one. Alright, this hand does disrupt. Keep, I think we get rid of the red card here. What are we pitching is the question. I think we pitched the other Grief. That could really back. Maybe it's the Edict here. Let's pitch the Edict and see what happens. We can always, if we have to, we can then fire the second Grief if they've just got like redundant wing next turn. Through Grief. Alright, so they got a Brainstorm, so they're going to protect themselves. We have the option of playing out a land and a Chrome Mox to play our... so we could play our Bowmasters in response, but that will shut down our ability to do another Grief. So I think the correct thing to do here is to make sure the Grief resolves and gets going. Force of Will, Omniscience, Omniscience. Huh. That's pretty good. Taking Omniscience here. And I guess we're Griefing and taking the other Omniscience or Force of Will. Not a big fan of how this turn's played out. We need another coloured card so we can put it under the Chrome Mox and start making some construct tokens, at least give ourselves a chance of beating down. We have a lot of pitch cards in our deck, which feels a tad awkward, I would say. So we know they got 2 Force of Wills and a Mountain here. Alright, so we didn't draw anything that does anything here. It's pretty annoying. Okay, we'll play out this other Saga. We don't get to make any tokens. But we can make a token next turn and start pressuring. We can get the Lotus Petal, which at least gives us 1 token. Then we can play these Chrome Moxes out just as ways of pumping our creature. It's not great, but we've disrupted our opponent's combo at least. So maybe that's enough to get us somewhere. Our opponent is shuffling a library after that Brainstorm, so we can't really be sure what's in their hand. A Ponder. There's a Mountain. Alright. Right, so we have to get our Lotus Petal, I think, here. So we can then try and grief our opponent. A Spell Pierce, sure. Yep. Our mana base is not helping us the most here. Ancient Tomb. Just to be Lorien revealed. Yep. Draw some cards. We are light years behind at this point, and we're about to be out of mana as well. A Nazgul. Let's get Dino DNA here. Exile one of our griefs, I suppose. We have nothing going on here. 6 mana is so much mana to do this. Sneak attack. What have you got? I'll probably scoop to just about any creature, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think we need to play this one. We are a million miles behind. Yeah, our interaction in our deck is not a lot. And the thing we're trying to do with like Nazguls is kind of weak compared to legacy standards. But then on top of that, we also have the problem of our, our mana base with all these colorless stuff going on. I don't think we should be an Urza Saga deck. I think that's taking the mick a little bit, perhaps. And also, like, we've got 8 pitch cards in our deck, which is a lot. Like, if these are just regular lands, we might have been able to play the game a little bit. So I think we're running into a few problems with the deck now. Let's go to round 4 and see if we can scrape a win together. Alright, so we're on the play for round 4. Our hand gives us a turn 2 Troll. And then we can start doing Urza Saga stuff. This seems pretty acceptable to me. Let's pass. Basic Swamp into Dark Ritual. We could be dead this turn. Is this a Stompy? Okay, yeah, him to Torak. I don't think we are supposed to... Okay, so we've lost our Animate Dead. That's pretty awkward. If I go to Thoughtseize us here, I guess we cycle the Troll. Reanimate on our massive guy. Okay. We can't really beat this card because we only have 2 removal spells in our whole deck, which feels like an error. Okay, we'll get Badlands. Alright. Let's get our Chalice going. Well, we're going to get to watch somebody lose the game to Witch King Sky Scourge. That's something that's going to happen, and you're going to get to watch it right now. Unfortunately, we are the people who are losing to it, but... God, look at this. Just drawing 5 cards straight up from the top of the library here. They only really get to use one of them, and it's probably the Wasteland here. Oh no, a swamp. A Douthie, sure. A Molten Collapse. We've just found our other removal spell. Oh, this is going to be sick. We get this back if this dies. Alright. Black, red. Okay. Wait, this isn't going to work because this is just going to exile it. Yeah. But we need to get out of play, otherwise we lose the game. So we get one construct off of this Saga. And then we start taking the next one up. Okay, we get no constructs out of this Saga. Yeah, it's only this turn you get to play them. Sure. Alright. Play a Nazgul. Powerful 3 mana 2/3. Okay. Bowmasters. That's a little bit of extra damage, but doesn't really change the fact that we're just going to die to this Douthie Voidwalker anyway. No shadows. Okay, so this is the Ring Bearer, so it can get bounced. Yuck. Alright, so what are we doing here? We can either get Troll or get a construct token here. I think Troll is just better. Not really sure how we deal with the problem of what's going on here. Because they bash for 3 and then they bash for 3 the next turn. So we need to find another one of our removal spells. And hope that it's good. The Karakas does sort of blank our whole Ring Bearer nonsense as well. Like, we can play this over multiple turns and work our way through the rooms, but that's not really going to achieve anything. And we'll be dead way before that happens. Yep, they just bash for 3 and then they bash for 3 again next turn. So we don't have a Shadow Spear in our deck. If we had a Shadow Spear, then we could win this game. We could give this guy +1/+1 and lifelink, bash for 6, which undoes a whole attack of theirs, and just keep it rolling. But we don't have a Shadow Spear because we're running Chalice in our deck instead of other interaction. So we are just dead. Alright. Molten Collapse seems alright. Fearfire Foes seems okay as well. Sheoldred's Edict, I would like to kill some of their scary boys. Vengeful Pharaoh. I don't think we want Vengeful Pharaoh here. Although, it's not without merit. What is this? This is Ring Tempts you and kills little goblins, little orcs. That's probably okay. Don't really like the big guys because they just reanimate our own guys. So that's a little bit sketchy. Saw in half is probably fine. Collective Brutality can kill a bunch of the things they're doing as well. I do think we still want the Chalices. We're not doing Haakon things. And we get one more trim here. Is it Dino DNA? It probably is Dino DNA, isn't it? Alright. Alright, our hand doesn't do anything, so we have to mulligan this one. What does this hand do? This hand, we can grief them turn 1 and then turn 2 hardcast a grief. That probably is acceptable. So I think we grief pitching a troll. Thoughtseize, Dark Ritual, reanimate, yikes. Still pretty terrible for us. Alright, so we take the reanimate here. Yikes. I guess we play these out. I'm slightly struggling to see where our match wins are going to come with this deck today. But there's some interesting learning deck building stuff that we could do from this, at least. Right, they didn't go for the Dark Ritual here. So they're going for turn 2, the One Ring, which will beat us. I don't think we can beat that at all. Alright. I think we need to keep our mana, so we are going to take the 2 life here. Get the Call of the Ring going. We haven't got any creatures for our Call of the One Ring yet, but we don't get to draw cards off of it unless we have a creature. So, not great. Things already have to be going okay for you for the Call of the Ring to do anything. Which is not exactly as I would like it to be. Alright. A Dark Ritual. And the One Ring. Exactly as we drew it up. So our opponent is going to be a million miles ahead from here. Play out our land. so it doesn't get stacked by him or something. Yep, our opponent's drawing some cards, and they should just bury us with this. If they find a Sheoldred at any point, they just get to draw a bunch of cards and ignore the downside of the ring. Well, they have Badlands too. Right, they're reanimating our own guy. That doesn't really matter. It's not going to take a card from us, it's just a threat. If we do find a creature, like now, it's going to be pretty good. So the question is, are we supposed to use our Lotus Petal? I think we are here. Black, black. Alright. So this is just going to die to the Sheoldred's Edict. But it will make any ring bearers we get pretty good here. And we can pay 2 life here. Okay, we don't get to choose a creature for our ring, so we won't get to pay 2 life. And draw a card. Our opponent correctly sequenced their spells. Alright. Yep. Our opponent's drawing 3 additional cards this turn. Our opponent is getting a Nazgul. Nazguls really shine in multiples. On their own, they're not very good cards. Well, they're straight up bad cards on their own. But as soon as you get multiples and the triggers stack, because they pump each Wraith every single time you do the ring stuff. So that's what you really want. Sure, they're just hard casting a Grief just to get more damage on board. So you got 8 damage as a 2-turn clock. Our ring is very tempting, but we don't have any creatures. Like, it's probably worth playing this. It's not going to address the problem we have of our opponent being able to just kill us with what they have in play. We just have too many do-nothing cards in our deck is the issue, and we're really feeling it in a matchup like this, which is just like good card central, really. Which, you know, has been some of the other matchups. We did play against a combo deck that we managed to pick apart and get a game win off of, but if our opponent's just playing like good cards, then we're going to be behind a lot of the time. So we play this, and then we die next turn. Yeah, we just have no game into, well, virtually anything at the moment, which is a bit worrying. But we have one more round. I'm determined to try my best to get a match win. Let's try it. Right, we're into the final round, and we are on the draw. I'm determined to try and get some sort of game win. What does our hand do? We get to do grief stuff, and then we have an Inti. So we have turn 1 grief, turn 2 Inti, and then we can start making Saga tokens. That's acceptable. We'll probably pitch the Core of the Ring, I think, here. Although we already have a legendary creature, so we can sort of double down into it. I guess we'll see what we draw. It's a shame we can't pitch this Inti to the grief. Noble Hierarch. Alright, so our opponent is probably Cradle Control. And Nazgul. Alright, the plan is going to be Nazgul-centric. So we're going to pitch the 1 ring here so we can just play multiple Nazguls, because they do scale up nicely in pairs, but they're just bad on their own. Alright, let's see what you're working with, opponent. Allosaurus Shepherd, Endurance. This hand isn't great, is it? Don't want to play against a turn 2 Endurance. Probably not. I think we just take the Endurance. They have a lot of mana, but they don't have the right creature types to make the Allosaurus Shepherd that scary. Right, so probably put a Delta and pass. Alright. So far, we're doing okay. It's going to be another Hierarch. Yep. Are they going to play the Shepherd out as well? Oh, no. They're not. Sorry, they have a Shepherd in hand. I just clicked that because I thought that's what was coming on the stack there. Okay. Now they're playing it out. Sure. Another grief. Our opponent has a card in hand that doesn't get taken by grief. Let's go and get our Badlands and play Inti. I think this card is genuinely pretty interesting. There's a Windswept Teeth and an Elvish Reclaimer. It's a very real card. So they can attack and get 3 exalted triggers. So I imagine the Shepherd's coming in. Yeah. There it goes. Yeah, we just take this. So we're hoping to find a land this turn so we can start doing Nazguls. It's kind of a land, isn't it? Alright, let's attack with this and see what we end up doing. I'd like to discard this bonus Inti. What is our... Okay, if we found a land as well. 3/3 Trampler. So they're going to animate the lair and trade here. Because this only becomes a 3/3. Okay, so they're going to trade their land for our Inti. Okay, I can live with that. We could make Saga tokens, but I think just making the Nazguls might actually be slightly better here. Death Touch means that we get to ignore a lot of their exalted nonsense. And we have a second one. So, let's see. Now they're just going to immediately play a Caracas and invalidate our little plan. Okay, not a Caracas. So they want to trade their Shepherd with our Nazgul. I think we take this one, but then the next one gets blocked. Because by having another one, we massively grow them. Right. We've got some pretty nice tools for this matchup as well, actually. For a change. I don't think we're making construct here. I think we're just going to tap this. Get ourselves the Dino DNA. How far away are we? It's probably just a Lotus Petal, isn't it? Let's be honest. Let's not mess about. So play out this swamp. Play this Nazgul. 2, 3. And then we can make a construct if we want to. I think we will play this out and make the grief. Go attacks. Maybe we're supposed to not play out the Chrome Mox, but I think having the... Yeah, maybe we aren't supposed to play out the Chrome Mox just in case we spike on like that. Right, so our opponent's got lots of mana. That's clear. But we've got some Nazguls. Right, so this is getting pumped quite a lot. These decks tend not to run Sejiri Step, if I recall correctly. So we're just going to try and trade our guy off here. Death Touch is good. I think this is worth spending a Lotus Petal on. I'm going to get Dino DNA this time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, let's go to attacks. See what the Ring Bearer finds us. No, we will just lose to a natural order, so we do need to push some damage. I don't think one is Chalice. Like, we're not scared of their 1-drops, we're scared of their 4-drops. And endurance. Okay. Right, so double blocking. We will kill the Elvish Reclaimer. That's way scarier than the endurance here. Alright, they're sacrificing something. What have they got? He's getting a Dried Arbor. Yeah, sure. Alright, let's cycle this now. Let's get Badlands. Let's play our Badlands. So I want to get rid of this endurance. Probably endurance for now. Because the creature still is the same size as always a 6/6. So having one that then sweeps away their graveyard and reduces future Reclaimers and Fiend Artisans is the correct play there, I think. There is an Allosaurus Shepherd, just as well we didn't have the Chalice. Right, so this is going to be a large boy. This is going to be like half of our life total. And then they can attack with some big boys to turn up. So I do think we have to block this. Maybe we weren't supposed to attack the Nazgul that turn. But we did shift some creatures off their board. Right, so we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could attack to loot this away, but I think we're better off trading our Nazgul. Do you want to take any other creatures here? I'll take that Reclaimer. I think we're holding back the Nazgul, so if they attack with something we can trade because of Death Touch. And then if we draw a land, we can just start playing endurances every turn. Right, so our opponent can force through 5 damage this turn if they want to. Actually, that's not true, because if they don't have the Exalted, that's going to be bad for them. Alright, so we can trade here. If we find a land, we can start making endurances. If we don't find a land, then we can put the Nazgul underneath and start making whatever we draw off the top. Another Nazgul. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Death Touch is very handy. Let's keep this ring nice and tempted. Nearly all the way through. I would like to exile our Nazgul. That's a pretty cool thing to keep playing every turn off of as a dinosaur. I would very much like to have a dinosaur Nazgul in play at some point in this game. This only turns elves into big things, so it's only itself that's going to pump. But at any moment they draw a natural order, we just lose it on the spot. So our clock is a finite one. Alright, so this is going to be 4 damages. I think we just let that happen. If we get a spell, it's good. If we get a land, it's good. Well, it depends on the spell, I suppose. Collective Brutality. This is only a sorcery, which is a bit of a pain. We could attack and try and find a land. But if we miss... No, I guess we kill this. And we're still okay. Sure. Let's loot. We don't really want this one. Alright, so we need to kill a creature here. So we kill this, otherwise we die. Right, because they pump this into a 5/5 and then it gains more damage. Oh, yeah, they just do that in response, don't they? What am I talking about? Yeah, and then we just dead on the next turn, right? Yeah, attacking with that Nazgul was a mistake. If we find the land, we're alright, but we've already discovered that our deck doesn't have enough lands in. But yeah, that was just a punt from me there. An Ignoble Hierarch. Sure. Let's see if they see the line. That gives them the win. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think we punted that one a little bit. Yeah, I don't think our deck can realistically ever activate Dino DNA as a card. Alright, but like I said, we have a lot of tools for this. We have Molten Collapse. We have Fire Foes. We have Sheoldred's Edicts, which are okay. Oxygen Agent, which is great. Dinosaur, love to see a bit of dinosaur action. We have the Black Breath as well. So, what are we looking at here? I don't think we want Haakon. Call of the Ring, I don't think is a good Magic the Gathering card, if I'm being perfectly honest. Chalice is one of those cards where it's quite often not going to do anything. So I think let's try and get rid of that. Like, I guess we have the removal so that we can maybe make it work. But what are we trimming if we're not playing these? I guess we could trim like Saw in Half and Warg Rider. That's acceptable. Maybe we do trim just like 2 Chalice. Alright, we'll try that. Like we could trim some of the Sky Witches, but... Alright, what does our hand do? We grief our opponent. I don't even want to grief our opponent on turn 1 though. No, I think we keep, obviously. But I think we're like not really looking to grief on turn 1 here. I think pitching the grief to a Collective Brutality is often going to be better. Now, Collective Brutality doesn't always hit all the things we want to hit. But it does, well, I mean, it doesn't always hit everything, but it's always going to hit Green Sun Zenith and Natural Order, which are the 2 of the scarier cards. So I think it's better to pitch the grief to the Collective Brutality rather than the other way around. Because we can get like a 2-for-1 then. Or, well, a 2-for-2 instead of a 2-for-1 against ourselves. Alright. Alright, we're supposed to cycle there. That's my bad. We have the spare mana this turn, so it doesn't really matter, but... So we can Orcish Bowmasters this, or we could play the Dinosaur. If we Orcish Bowmasters, we get to cycle and cover up the little mistake I just made of not cycling at end of turn. But this attacks for more damage. Alright, I think we should be playing this and cycling. Let's cycle this. And I think we get Badlands and pass. So the next 1-drop they play, we will kill. They play something bigger, like an Elvish Reclaimer, then we're going to be Collective Brutalitying. 2 lands in graveyard. A Green Sun Zenith for a Dryad Arbor. We don't get to be the most efficient with our mana this turn, but I think that's okay. -2, and we'll have a look at their hand. Choose target opponent, choose target creature, black, black. Discard the grief. Take the Natural Order. Boom. Exactly how we drew it up there. Go to attacks. I'm honestly okay to trade a Bowmasters for a Dryad Arbor. I don't think our opponent's ever taken that trade. Right, so they have an Endurance now. Chalice, is that really where we're at right now? I think we just go play the Dinosaur, kill one of their Dryad Arbors. This is pretty cool actually. It's when it enters the battlefield or attacks. I think this card is legitimately good. Yeah, so they're going to play their Endurance now. And then we're going to play our Chalice for 1, which shuts down some of their deck. Yep, there's Endurance. We're probably going to take our graveyard so that we can't do any shenanigans with it. Let's just put Chalice on 1. That shuts down any of their little mana dorks. And then when the Spitting Dinosaur attacks, we can choose what we do with it. We can reduce their Endurance or we can kill their Dryad Arbor, but this will die. So it's probably just doing the endurance here. Put this on the endurance. Oh, this is a horrible attack. What am I doing? What am I doing? This is terrible. Like, the endurance is face up, and I'm just playing, like, absolute crap. Yeah, so now this eats this, and then we just get nothing out of that attack. Apart from 2 measly points of damage. That was just utterly terrible. Sure, I'll put on this guy. So they'll attack with this endurance, maybe, or they'll hold it back. I guess this card can't block, but if it attacks, it just gets eaten by the Nazgul. God, that's such a terrible, embarrassing play. Molten Collapse. So we can kill their endurance and start attacking. That seems fine. Then our Ring Bearer will attack. Alright, they're going to trade it off. That's fine. We could have a dinosaur in play. But no. A Grief. I'm down for casting Grief here. Probably got 1 card in hand. It's probably a 1-drop. But this is a menace creature. There's the 1-drop. Let's go attacks. This can't block. Oh no, it can block. It just has a -1/-1 counter on it. It only can't block while this is in play. Then we just have to pass here. Again, natural order is something that they can eventually draw, and it's going to be bad for us. Once Upon a Time. Not a bad hit. This can find things like Fiend Artisan. There it is. This is going to be a big boy. 7/7. And they can start doing pretty gross things with it soon as well. We need some more removal. Did not find any more removal. The Grief is coming in to attack here. I just still don't think we're attacking with the Nazgul. We attack with this. If they double block this, we kill the endurance. They don't have anything to sacrifice to the Fiend Artisan. What fresh hell is this going to be? A Grist. Yep. That's pretty bad news for us. So, we need to attack the Grist. They can't block this. They can block this. If we block with both of these and take this, this is then massive. Yikes. I think we do need to do this. We need to keep the Grist off the board. We can't beat Grist. Let's play Sunshine Lad, whatever it's called. Inti Seneschal of the Sun. Yeah, Sunshine Lad. This guy might be chump blocking their massive yacht. We'll see. Like, if they're tapping their Fiend Artisan to sacrifice their insect token, that's probably not the worst for us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they can get a 5-drop or less from their deck. I don't know if they've got anything good at the 5 point. Probably not. It usually goes up to Atraxa. Alright, they're getting something. Another Fiend Artisan. That is good. That is better than what we're up to right now. So we can attack with this for 4, and then next turn it's lethal at 5. Because of how this card works. Yeah, we could have done this last turn, actually. Let's get rid of one of these. Let's make our guy bigger. Sheoldred's Edict. Don't mind that one. Non-token creature, please, opponent. Yeah, I think we missed the damage last time. We could have just attacked with the Grief using our Inti, couldn't we? Yeah, I'm playing this entire game like crap. I'm just playing new cards I've not even seen before today, really. I'm playing them horribly wrong. But hopefully it'll be at least a learning experience and mildly entertaining. So, yeah, okay. We got a victory. We just need to repeat that one more time. I like what we have going on. I think Phyrexian Revoker is actually quite tasty here. Maybe better than the Witch. We can name Fiend Artisan with it, is the idea. Alright. We have removal. And then we can start playing some guys later on. This is a land. Our opponent is going to play a 1-drop on turn 1 though. Chrome Mox would be a really good draw. It's not Chrome Mox. We're going to cycle this now because our opponent could be running Opposition Agent. Alright. Another little guy. Yep. Doing some work over there. Right, we're going to kill a guy and we're going to duress our opponent. Target them and we'll kill their Ignoble. And what we're going to pitch here It's probably a Nazgul, to be honest. Alright. No targets. So get to play an Endurance and the Hierarch this turn. In this turn cycle, at least. So they're probably not attacking here. Didn't think you were attacking. We've bricked on land. Our opponent's going to cast his Endurance at end step. There's no way we can sequence this to stop our opponent from doing what they're going to do. We can take out their Hierarch though. They're probably going to shuffle our graveyard in because we've got Animate Deads and stuff in our deck. Alright, our opponent's got a kind of similar hand to what they had last time, to be honest. If we can find a land, then our hand is pretty decent. As long as we don't make horrible mistakes again. Are we taking 4 from this? I think so. We failed on the land, and they'll just cast us in response. There's no point trying to pitch this. Alright, we're just going to make our opponent sacrifice something. They're not going to sacrifice their Endurance. But we'll still cast in response. Just going to get rid of a Dried Arbor, I imagine, here. Yep. So this turn I think we're committed to blocking with an Orc Army token. They might attack with both here. Once upon a time. Alright. It's a pretty good one. Let's find a Fiend Artisan. An Elvish Reclaimer. Okay. Attacking with both. They are. We'll save ourselves a little bit of damage there. If we can find land, we can start making Nazguls with Death Touch. Alright. Let's get the Death Touch rolling. I think we might need to chump block at some point, so I'm going to leave this Bowmasters back. If it was looting, then I'd obviously do some attacks with it, but that's not really what we're doing. If we take this damage and we play our next Nazgul, it'll pump both of our Nazguls and they'll be out of range. I think we're going to chump block with one of these instead, just to save our life total, and then try and have 2 Nazguls that are bigger than our opponent's creatures. Our opponent's going to get a Gaia's Cradle soon. That's going to be pretty good. Is Animate Dead good here? I think we play out the Nazgul. This will pump both of our Nazguls. So do we want to grief our opponent when they have 1 card in hand? And if so, what would we get rid of? Playing another Nazgul on this board is great. If our opponent had something good, they would have played last turn anyway. So I'm just not going to waste a grief here. I don't think I'm attacking either. Just need to hold their guys back. Yeah, so they go and get Cradle this time. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if they have Cradle in hand with Dead, a Noble Hierarch, sure. So next turn, if they have Green Sun Zenith, they can kill us with a Green Sun Zenith next turn. So we probably do have to grief this turn. Alright, we'll trade my Death Touch guy for your Endurance. An Urborg is probably okay. So we can hard cast our grief if we want to, or we could play another Nazgul. I think we're playing out our Urborg here. I think I just want to pitch cast the grief here. Giving up the Animate Dead is a real issue. Like, we could just get the... I think the Dinosaur is just nice here, though. Alright, we're going to pitch the Animate Dead. I just don't want our opponent to have a Green Sun Zenith here. A Force of Vigor. Okay. Not very exciting. Alright, so we can start chipping some guys down, or we can just make another massive Nazgul. I think we're on Nazgul mode. I don't think our opponent is attacking here. Alright, they're going to thin out their library and maybe find something useful here. Probably Lair of the Hydra. Yeah, there you go. Then we can start Dinosauring our way to victory. Alright, so they have 2 elves. Right, so we've got Lair of the Hydra coming in. I think we just trade our Death Touch off for it. Play a Dinosaur. Just kill this Allosaurus Shepherd. So we can pump both of these into 5/5s if they have that. Are we cycling this guy now to get a land? What does that actually achieve for us? If we draw an Ancient Tomb, we can just play it, but it will not obviously be the lowest cost of things because it will be 2 life. I don't think we're attacking with our big guy. I think we have to hold it back on blocks. Getting rid of their Cradle. Is it just going to get another Cradle? Just try and thin the deck of 1 land. Yeah, okay. Marginal thinning. Natural Order immediately kills us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Crate Hoof kills us as well. White mana and black mana. Interesting. Crime. Put target creature or enchantment card from opponent's graveyard into the battlefield your control. Alright, so we're playing the Nazgul game, eh? Interesting. This can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So we can't block it here. We can chump block it. If we chump block this, that buys us a little bit of time. If we don't chump block it, then what? So we can attack. Strengthen this. I think we have to chump block here. Much as I hate that. Crime and punishment. I haven't seen that for a long time. Grief. That can chump block, I guess. I guess we'll cycle this first. So this can chump block a thing. This can hold back some stuff back on blocks from our opponent, but our opponent is very far ahead now. I think it's only a matter of time before they win this game. We were close, but them getting that Nazgul and getting the Ringbearer mechanic on is a real problem for us, because our massive guy doesn't hold anything back now, because they can just attack through it. They can probably serve with multiple creatures if they really want to here, but yeah, I think it's probably just safer to ship endurance here. I think we are on the blocks here. Like, we need the thing that -1s all their guys. Black Breath, or whatever it's called. Not another swamp. Okay. Guess we keep this in hand as a mystery card for our opponent to try and play around, but I think we are dead. Maybe not this turn, but a turn after. Yep, let's search in for another land. Just another Cradle. Alright, opponents. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll put us to 1. Right, attack them with lots of things. So block here. We can't block this one, right, because of the Ringbearer mechanic. So this blocks here. We take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and go to 1. So they Orcish Bowmasters and kill us. Okay. No, they just have a massive guy. We just got nothing. Our deck is unplayable. Alright. So I think it's our second 0-5 of the week. Unlike the first 0-5 where we lost like all of our games 1-2, we got smashed pretty hard with this one. Let's talk about the deck and discuss why it doesn't work. So our deck is trying to do quite a few different things. Like, we've got a package of good stuff in our deck. Like this. We're like running Animate Dead instead of Reanimate, which is obviously weaker and slower, which makes things less good. And it also impacts our curve in quite a problematic way. But then we also have this. So, you know, these are the good cards in our deck. Like, Animate Dead is fine. I don't think Chalice of the Void is where you want your interaction. Like, if you only have space for, like, a handful of interaction spells. So we've got, like, what? We got this, and this. This is, like, our interaction spells. Like, Saw in Half, you can point at an enemy creature, but I wouldn't recommend it. So this is our interaction with, like, our opponent. I guess you can also include Grief in that as well. But again, Grief is a pitch card, and we also have these 4 pitch cards that are essential to our mana base. So we're fighting over cards this way, and our mana base is just not stable enough. So this is sort of our interaction. And Chalice of the Void doesn't always do anything, right? Sometimes it can shut some stuff off, but it's not the thing it used to be where you could just slam the door on a bunch of decks. Now, it doesn't actually do that much unless your opponent is relying on 0 drops and you put it on 0 for the most part. You can definitely stunt your opponent's development a little bit, but it's not going to be enough to be the interaction that you rely on. And Grief is fine as a bit of hand disruption, but so often I'm finding that if we're pitching to do stuff with Grief, like, our mana just doesn't work as well because we need these Chrome Moxes. So it's just really awkward on that front. And then basically we have 2 spells that can interact with stuff on the board. So Molten Collapse, this card seems fine. This seems legacy playable. You can blow stuff up with it. Sometimes you can blow 2 things up with it. This seems acceptable to me. This seems like something that is on a legacy power level. Collective Brutality is a card that rarely do I think is good enough for legacy when I've played it. Again, it's another pitch card in our deck that's already struggling with pitch cards. And the idea of this is so that we can utilize our Animate Deads a little bit better and maybe do something with Haakon and get this going. But the whole Haakon thing just feels like an absolute pipe dream. It's too cute. Our deck isn't good enough to stay in the game long enough to do Haakon stuff. And trying to get this into the graveyard, playing a bunch of cards to do that doesn't feel worthwhile. Call of the Ring is another card where if you've got a creature and you can do stuff with it, then it pushes you further ahead. But if you're trying to like sort of claw into a game, this card doesn't do anything. And I don't think it's legacy playable in my opinion. So I think we're running a lot of cards that aren't quite there. The Nazguls, I don't think really are legacy playable. Like, I would like them to be better, but 3 mana for something that gets lightning bolted is awful. Now in multiples they are good. I won't deny that. As soon as you get a second one, they feel pretty reasonable. However, having just one of these is not good. Obviously, we can pitch them to stuff. But then that means we're more likely to draw another dead card. And it just makes them more likely to be dead going forward. So it's this weird compounding problem. Like the Witch King is obviously something we're never casting. And we don't really have enough stuff to put it in the graveyard. So I don't think this is reasonable either. And I don't think the Warg Rider is reasonable either. The Inti, this card is good. I think this card is actually very nice. We did make one misplay with it because due to my unfamiliarity when I played it second combat due to force of habit, where we could have just had our grief kill their grist and we could have got there. We did win that game anyway, but we definitely could have played that one a bit tighter. This card I think is the real deal. If you have a 1-drop that comes down before it, I think this card is really reasonable and does some pretty cool stuff. Like you're not going to get the loot off of it necessarily, I guess, because you're not going to have things that you're going to cast with it unless you've got like a bunch of 0-drops. I've seen the Riddler deck playing this, so it can utilize most of the cards off top of its library even if it's tapped out, which makes sense. But I think this card is pretty reasonable, and sometimes trading a card in your hand for a +1/+1 counter is actually worth doing too. But in the sort of mid to late game, this can really shine. I don't think it's going to be like, you know, a legacy staple or something, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it appear. Also, our mana base of 18 lands, 4 of them being disappearing lands. I think trying to use Dino DNA is a pipe dream in this deck. And I don't think it's worth trying to play. If we had Shadow Spear, we would have won one of our rounds. We would have beaten the mono black deck if we had Shadow Spear instead of Dino DNA. But that's not the case. So this is basically our pile of cards that aren't really good enough, in my opinion, to be playing. And that's a pile of 16 cards. So that's that's more than a quarter of our deck. Well, actually, let's add this as well. So that's nearly a third of our deck that I don't think is really legacy playable. Now, there is a way that you can play the Nazgul that is a little bit interesting, that maybe is better. So you could play a green-black Nazgul deck using Collected Company, because that way you find 2 of these at once, and all of a sudden you have 2 good cards in play instead of 1 bad card until you find the other one. And also the curve of being a 3-drop and then playing a 1-mana dork to get the Nazgul going, that seems a lot more reasonable to me. Like, powering them out with Ancient Tomb is like, is that really the best we can do with Ancient Tomb? Like, in the last round you saw the Cradle Control deck, which has the ability to, you know, play some creatures that aren't that impressive at the end of the day, right? They play some pretty mediocre creatures, but there's a little bit of synergy there. They have ways of using them to make them better, and they have a way of reliably getting them out earlier. So I think that plan is better than trying to Ancient Tomb this out, because you Ancient Tomb this out and you're behind because this card isn't very good on its own. Whereas you play a Mana Dork and play this, then that doesn't seem as bad, especially if you've got like the Ignoble Hierarch, so it's attacking for an additional point of damage on attacks. Becoming a 3/4 is definitely a little bit better, but again, dying to Lightning Bolt as a 3-mana spell is never really where you want to be. So if I were... Also, I don't think we should be an Urza Saga deck. We don't reliably have the mana to play Urza Saga. Urza Saga disappearing is a problem. We're not trying to do anything cool with the things that come out of it. We often just wanted to get Lotus Petal because our mana was so bad. So if I wanted to try and fix this deck, there's several routes you could go. You could just play a good black deck playing the good black spells. You've seen that a million times before. That's not really what you want me to tell you to play. But that's probably the best thing you could do with this sort of shell. However, if you want to lean into like Nazgul type stuff, I think what you need to do is lean into it harder, as wild as that is. I don't think you can have a good deck, gut it a bit, and then put in a load of bad cards and expect it to be okay. I think if you're trying to build around something, you need to actually go harder into it. So in a way, if you embrace the jank and really pivot into it to make your jank less janky, then that seems like a better strategy to me. I don't think we want Urza Saga. I don't think we want these Chrome Moxes. So I think we want a real mana base of 22 lands that tap for mana. If you want to have a Lotus Petal, fine. Maybe 23 lands that tap for mana. And then instead of playing things like Chalice and Grief, I think we could be playing 1 mana spells. So we could be playing Thoughtseizes and like removal spells, like actual honest to God removal spells. And we can have more fetch lands to make our Molten Collapses better, which is another thing we could do. We could be running Dark Ritual. That's an interesting way to power out 3-drops instead. I don't think we want to be running Haakon at all. I don't think we want to be running the Witch Kings, the Warg Rider, the Core of the Ring, Collective Brutality, Dino DNA. I don't think we want that plan. I think this card is just fine on its own. I don't think we need to have, like, let's try and utilize the way it's using the graveyard. Also, if we're getting rid of Chalice, we can run, if we want to run this stuff, we can run Reanimate instead of Animate Dead, which is just better and works much nicer on the curve. But I think if we're getting rid of the Grief, we're probably getting rid of all this stuff. So maybe the other color to go with our Nazguls, like I said, maybe we're not supposed to be a red deck. Maybe we strip all these out and we play the green-black deck that I mentioned before, and we basically play the Nazgul Rock, which is something that I've been building a list on for a little while. I haven't really thought about it too much because I've not played with the Nazgul before, so I was like, I don't think this card's good. I want to play with it, see how it feels. But that's probably a thing that we could do, and I might give it a go when I get some time. Although with December coming up, it might be a while before I get a chance to actually play that. So that is something that I think would be better if you want to play the Nazguls. Like, you're either playing like a good black deck or you're playing the Nazgul deck. And if you're playing the Nazgul deck, you probably want to do some other things. I do actually have a deck that runs Inti and some other stuff in it where you could theoretically put Nazguls in it, but I think that would make it worse. So I think if Nazgul is a thing you want to play, you really want to lean into it in a different way to what we're doing here. I think Bosch and Roll played a league with a deck. I don't know how well he did with it, but he played Nazguls in more of like a mono-black stompy thing with a much more secure mana base. If we're trying to play 3-drops, we need a secure mana base to do that, and I don't think this is it. All right, I think I'm done with the main deck. Sideboard-wise, there's some interesting things to talk about here. So, obviously, like, Ardona loves to see weird stuff and cute stuff, and they want to know how good stuff is, and that's why they give us these sort of mishmash decks with a bunch of stuff going on, because how are you going to know how stuff feels unless you play it? Now, I don't think we have necessarily the right engines to play certain stuff like Dino DNA and things, especially in our disappearing lands problem with the sagas, but our opponents put a load of weird cards in this. Sorry, not our opponent. Ardona has put a lot of weird cards in this deck to see how they feel, which I'm totally on board for. I think that's a good thing to do and test things out. This dinosaur genuinely impressed me as a card. I think it comes into play and it does something. Ping for 1 in the world of Bowmasters is pretty reasonable because it kills Bowmasters, and the fact that it attacks and pings is also nice. And if your opponent's hoping to block with something, you can kind of mess that up too. I think this card is legacy playable. Is it like the be-all and end-all? Not really sure. Is it better than Plague Engineer? Not sure. It's kind of similar level to Plague Engineer, to be honest. Plague Engineer obviously has Death Touch, so you can trade in combat with most stuff. This gets to pick off things constantly. So that's kind of different. You don't just name one thing and hope for the best. This way you can do it and just constantly get rid of things. Obviously worse against things like Minsk and Boo. But I think there are situations where this is good. Like in the last game where our opponents got a selection of different creature types that are mana dorks. We can shred through them and get things done. So I think the Black Breath is just worse than playing a Plague Engineer. But, you know, it's pretty obvious, but we're just playing this thing because it would have been good in that last matchup, but we didn't find it. I think the Rampaging War Mammoth, 3 mana plus X is just too expensive when Meltdown exists in the format. If you want to blow up artifacts from your sideboard, you really need to blow them up. So I think you need to actually have dedicated graveyard hate for that, artifact hate for that. Vengeful Pharaoh is a card that I genuinely like, but I think it belongs in an Entomb, Life from the Loam, Dark Blast shell. So you need to have a Dredge spell, and I think you need to have Entomb to find it. That's where this card becomes playable in my eyes. This card, on the other hand, Fear, Fire Foes. I had not seen this card before. I think this card is actually good. I think being able to bypass the ring trigger will end up winning you a bunch of matchups. And you can pay 2 mana and ping all of their guys for 1, but it scales up. So paying 2 to ping them all for 2. Oh, well, you can ping something for 2 and then ping the other ones for 1 is fine. Like, you get to pick off multiple things. So for like 3 mana, you get to prevent some damage and cast like an Arc Trail, which, you know, isn't amazing. But if they got multiple creatures like the Cradle Control deck, which is a very popular deck that recently top-8'd Eternal Weekend, this is a very good card against Cradle Control matchups because you can dome the big thing and then sweep out all the little tokens. And I think it's also reasonable in a more aggressive deck against the One Ring. So that's kind of where I stand on that card. I'd like to play it a little bit more. I don't think it's like revolutionary or game breaking. I think it's got some niche applications that mean it might be worth some sideboard space sometimes. All right, I think I've gone over a lot of the deck and why I don't necessarily think it works. I also think Animate Dead as a card in this particular deck is kind of fighting for when we're trying to do stuff with mana. We're kind of like one spell a turn, and by not having 1-drops really, we're just saying, okay, we're delaying ourselves a bit longer for when we're trying to do stuff. So I think the Animate Dead being 2 mana rather than a 1 mana thing, so you can't just do like Grief and Reanimate. Like, that all stems from the Chalice of the Void issue. And we're running Chalice of the Void here because we have Ancient Tombs, and we have these Sagas because we have Ancient Tombs. But I think we're trying to do too many things and doing them all badly, where we could consolidate our deck into a different fashion. All right, I think I am done talking about this one. It may have been an 05, and it may have been an unplayable deck at the end of the day. But I think there's some really interesting deck building learning to come from this, and at the end of the day, I like to do that on my channel and sort of explore some weird stuff. And there's a bunch of cards that I've not seen before and not played before, so at least we got to sort of see my thoughts on them and just see how they feel in terms of the tempo of the format and what my sort of expectations going forward are on some of these cards. Some of them you may well see again. I think I will probably play that Nazgul deck at some point. Maybe I'll be able to get it done before Depth December starts. But once Depth December starts, you know I'm going to be making Maralages every which way that you can possibly imagine. And I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you are too. It's going to be my big exciting event of the year that I did last year, but this time it's going to be twice as big. So stay tuned for some Depth December. But as for this deck, I think I can't really say any more about it, and I hope you at least enjoyed the breakdown of it and seeing some new stuff. And even though my play was a little bit sloppy in some of these rounds, I think playing new cards can kind of do that to me. And when I sort of get into a deck that I feel doesn't really work, I sometimes play a little substandard because I'm a bit defeated already. But there's not really an excuse for doing that. Nevertheless, the league is over. We learned some stuff, and you can't say fairer than that. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. If you know anyone who's into Legacy, please send them my content. More viewers always helps and pushes me in the algorithms and stuff. And I'm hoping by the end of next year I can have this as a pretty reliable source of income. Fingers crossed. So anything you can do to push my content to your friends, by all means do so. All right, I'm done. I'm finished rambling, so thank you once again very much, and goodbye.